Time now for Focus. As Donald Trump seems set to continue his mission to keep US companies at home, several big American businesses have already started investing more there. While many have been producing in Asia, where wages are lower, they've found other ways to cut costs in the US. And they're encouraged by some consumers saying they're willing to pay a little bit more for local products. France 2's Jacques Cardoz and France 24's Unke Ulla report.
Union City, Tennessee has seen many companies shut down or relocate to Asia. This factory has done the opposite. 9 to 5 Seating has moved one of its production sites from China to Union City and rebranded itself as Made in America Seating.
Back to the United States is going to be a key element in helping our economy. And as a manufacturer, I think we have an obligation to do everything we can to bring manufacturing back to the United States.
The chair company has invested 39 million euros in the site, mainly on efficient machinery, the key to a successful business.
A lot of manufacturings just have one tool room. In MIA, we have 13 really separate manufacturing processes under one roof. It's actually making the dies that allow us to be our own supplier.
It's a strategy that's helped the business turn the tables on long-standing trade rules.
Our plan is to totally reverse a trend that has existed for the past 30 or 40 years. And in fact, about 2 months ago, we made history by exporting our first shipment from this facility to our factory in China.
Sophisticated machines are the reason the company was able to settle in the US in the first place, because they replace many of the workers, cutting costs, and upping production. But MIA is also planning to create 500 new jobs, mostly specialized machine operators.
I can run 100 to 1 over them, and where it would take 7 people, it takes only 1.
Producing local also means buying local raw material and creating a network of local businesses. Smaller shipping costs means companies pay about the same as they would to a Chinese supplier.
One of the things that we're able to do is work with other vendors around the state of Tennessee. So we're creating residual jobs. The product is equivalently the same type of price.
Consumers are enthusiastic about buying local and helping create local jobs. They're also often ready to pay more to support businesses. That's what the owner of Cleveland Motorcycles believes. Unlike its name suggests, his motorcycles have so far been made exclusively in China.
Social responsibility is huge, and there's a huge push from my generation and younger generation to buy local, to really source locally, and to really build up your community.
As for fitness giant Reebok, the move back home means finding new ways to cut costs.
We've always been dependent on inexpensive labor. This is the reason we've moved around the globe from Japan, believe it or not, to Korea, to China, and now Vietnam, all in search of inexpensive labor. We're pretty much out of places on the planet to find less expensive labor going forward, so we have to innovate, really change fundamentally how we do production of our product.
These innovations include new manufacturing processes, like this 3D drawing method Reebok calls the Liquid Factory. Machines draw outsoles for shoes with speed and precision, streamlining manufacturing and cutting costs by eliminating expensive shoe molds. Reebok's workshop is a blend of old and new. Some shoes are still made by hand, for traditionalists willing to pay a higher price. On the other side of the room, 3D printers are hard at work cranking out numerous pairs of less expensive footwear. The result is a quieter, more efficient factory.
The idea is when you get to a local for local manufacturing, you shave on shipping because you're doing it right next door. You save on labor because you need fewer people on the factory floor itself. You're moving some of those positions into programming.
With Donald Trump's administration pushing protectionist policies, even more American companies might soon be coming home.
Joining me now is Ronald Freeman, who's on the Atlantic Council's Board of Directors. Hello, thank you very much indeed for joining us for today's Focus. So we just saw in that report a few American companies upping local manufacturing. Just how many of them are there, do you think? How many US companies can we speak of a trend here?
Well, there's definitely a trend, but it's not driven so much by concerns of protectionism. as it is driven by technology. And we heard that from our friends at Reebok. McKinsey, the consulting firm, estimates that 60% of all the jobs now in the United States taken by human beings could be replaced by technology. That's an amazing statistic, and that's a major driver. No need to chase low-priced labor in Vietnam if you can make the same product somewhere in the US with a robot, provided the cost of that robot and the quality of its output is comparable to the cost of the labor, if not lower.
I was going to ask you about that because in that report we see a lot of machines, and it just made me think that when Donald Trump, during his campaign, he promised to bring a lot of jobs back to the US. I mean, that's not even really possible these days then, with machines replacing humans in many jobs.
You're absolutely correct. It's impossible, and it's in fact irrelevant. And the United States economy is not driven primarily by net exports. Growth in the US economy comes from consumption, consumers, US consumers. And when we do an analysis of the economy in the US as between companies that import and companies that produce domestically, you see an increasing convergence. And once again, the driver is technology. The real question, the larger question, the question for philosophers is if we don't need the people to be the workers, who's going to pay for all the consumption?
Right, from philosophy to economy, what do you make of what we've heard so far from the president-elect, the US president-elect Donald Trump, on his ideas? I mean, he really seems to be focusing on protectionism. Is that good or bad for the US and for US consumers?
Well, it's wildly irrelevant. The most protectionist country in the world today is the United States. The other three top protectionist countries, measured in terms of the different forms of the way they protect their own domestic industries, the other three would be, in no particular order, India, Russia, and China. So America already has a PhD in protectionism. They have nothing to learn from Donald Trump on that score. And of course, the American economy is doing fine. The unemployment rate now is at 4.7%. We've had 2 million jobs a year plus over the 8 years of Obama's presidency. We have virtually full employment. Salaries are starting to go up. The economy is in very good shape. In that regard, the president-elect starts with a picture that's a good one. And all of his posturing about building walls to keep out Mexicans has really nothing to do with economic reality. The real economic problem, the one he doesn't talk about, is that underneath America's good overall economic performance is a deepening catastrophe of economic inequality, where the top 20%, the top 1% of Americans, in terms of their annual income, are making 25 to 40 times the annual income of the next 99%. And of course, the bottom 20% of the American economy has seen no growth in its economic situation since the 1970s. This is a catastrophe, a human catastrophe, which will have vast political implications. We haven't heard anything from President-elect Trump on that one.
Indeed. We'll have to see what he does about those inequalities. But you mentioned China. This, of course, a country that he has threatened to impose a punitive tariffs on. Do you think we might have a trade war with China coming up?
Well, China has so many ways to retaliate against the United States if the U.S. does something outside of the existing understandings between those two countries, that Mr. Trump, he should take some chess lessons before he moves any more pieces across the board. China can affect America politically. China is a major holder of Treasury debt, Treasury bonds, and could have an impact on America's interest rates, the cost of money, simply by selling or threatening to sell or thinking of threatening to sell some of those bonds. China has impact over the North China Sea and the South China Sea, as we've already seen, and can threaten America's status among its Pacific allies by simply putting a few more ships in its home waters. Mr. Trump needs to be very, very careful before he threatens the Chinese. It's almost as stupid as threatening the intelligence services of the United States.
And what about this big border tax that he's spoken of? What kind of impact might that have if he ends up going ahead with it? Which industries would be the hardest hit?
Well, we went through that in the 1930s, the Smoot-Hawley tariff. If I tax you, you're going to tax me in return. We've been down that path. It doesn't work. We don't have to keep making the same mistakes over and over again.
All right. We really appreciate your time and your analysis. Ronald Freeman from the Atlantic Council. Thank you very much indeed.